Since ancient times, this world has existed two kingdoms that are as opposed to each other as day and night. Above the high sky is the White Kingdom, a beautiful kingdom protected by light and possessing the very best. The ruler of this kingdom is the King of Light, Iris, a beautiful queen devoted to her country. The opposite of the White Country is the Black Country, a country below the ground covered by endless night, where this is a land full of demons and instability due to war. The ruler of the Black Country was called the King of Darkness with absolute authority over his territory. Our main character is Kuro, a young man born in a small village in the Black Country. One day, Kuro's village was suddenly attacked by a horde of magical beasts. Kuro tried to fight the demonic beasts, but because they were so strong he could only take a little girl who escaped to the mountains. But in the end, the girl died because she was too weak, so Kuro had to carry her back to the village to find someone to help. But then he discovered that his village was empty. Heartbroken and helpless to see her village wiped out, Kuro only quietly dug holes to bury the unfortunate villagers in the pouring rain. At this moment, a man wearing noble armor passed through the village. Seeing that Kuro was busy digging a hole, he walked up to him and asked him a question and gave him a piece of bread. Hungry and exhausted, Kuro snatched the bread and devoured it. Seeing that Kuro was still digging holes in vain, the man threw his sword to him. He said he would teach him how to save people without having to dig holes to bury them. It was clear that a young man like Kuro was no match for the veteran warrior. But with the will to save everyone, Kuro finally blew the sword in the man's hand. The man laughed and said that he did not expect such a miracle in the last moments of his life. It turned out that this man was Skiers, the prince of the Kingdom of Darkness. He was defeated in the battle for the throne, thus carrying heavy injuries. Along with old age, the strength inside Skiers was almost exhausted. Before taking his last breath, the prince handed over his sword to Kuro. He told him to go to the capital and find a horseman named Valas. Then declare that I am the Prince of Darkness, the heir to the King of Darkness. He will tell you what to do next. Skiers says that he has all his faith in Kuro and believes he can change the world. Kuro brought the sword to the royal capital and met Valas. Seeing the owner's sword lying in someone else's hand, Valas thought that Kuro had killed Skiers and stole it. But when he heard Kuro claiming to be the Prince of Darkness, he understood that Kuro was the one the prince had chosen as his successor. Valas took his sword back and said that Kuro was his master from now on, and then led him back to Skiers' mansion. While the Black Country was engulfed in chaos, in the sky the White Country was led by Queen Iris to become a powerful power. Iris often and her warriors repel the magic beasts that always try to infiltrate the territory of the White Country. For Iris, her greatest wish is to be able to defeat the Shadow King who is always trying to invade the territory of the White Country. The queen didn't even care about her health as she often had to use too much strength to repel the demonic beasts. One day, Queen Iris was resting in the palace when suddenly a demon king named Baal attacked the city. He blatantly destroyed the palace and killed many people. The royal guards were also quickly defeated by him in one hit. Even the elf mage Elantia couldn't stop Baal. In the face of Baal's terrible power, Queen Iris was forced to confront the monster herself. But because Iris had lost a lot of strength in the last battle with the evil spirit of darkness, even though she was the strongest in the White Country, she was still completely weak against the Demon King. Fortunately, Baal was just looking for someone worthy to compete with him, so when Iris didn't show his full strength, he turned his back and left, so the White Kingdom also temporarily avoided a life problem. Elsewhere, Kuro was trained by Valas in both swordsmanship and cultural knowledge. Valas says that being a king is not enough. Kuro needs to have knowledge to lead the country to become more prosperous. After a period of intense training with Valas, Kuro's strength has been greatly enhanced. To encourage the young man, Valas gave him a Skiers coat. He said that if it was given to Kuro, the late prince would feel relieved too. One day, while practicing swordsmanship with Valas, Kuro accidentally saves a girl named Groza from a demonic beast. That made the girl grateful and decided to invite him to join the battle for the Great Sword of Darkness. Groza is the one authorized to organize this contest, and she states that whoever has the Great Sword in hand will be officially recognized as the Prince of Darkness. After accepting the invitation to join the battle, Kuro continued with Valas to practice sword skills to wait for the day to obtain the Great Sword of Darkness. When that day finally came, Kuro entered the battle along with quite a few other candidates. In the first round, they encountered an opponent who was a giant demonic beast. It had a terrible power that no one could defeat. The candidates are gradually eliminated from the game by the monster until Kuro finishes off the monster in a single blow. Right now there were only him and an elf swordsman named Adele left on the ring. The two entered the final match to decide who would be the owner of the great sword. As soon as she entered the battle, Adele repeatedly attacked Kuro. But thanks to the combat experience taught by Valas, Kuro was able to blow away the sword in Adele's hand with a single strike. And so he won the final and officially became the Prince of Darkness. As soon as he stepped out of the arena, Kuro immediately received a special task that was to bring the letter of proposal for the alliance of the King of Darkness to the ruler of the White Kingdom. Perhaps the ruler of the Dark Kingdom had finally realized that the matter of the Demon King Baal had really gotten out of hand. He also appointed Adele and Groza to accompany Kuro to the White Country. So the three of them set off for the White Kingdom on a magical airship. Along the way, Adele said that currently the Black Country and the White Country were still at war, so entering White Country territory was extremely dangerous for them. Adele offered to let him replace Kuro as the negotiating agent, and Kuro would be his bodyguard. Upon landing in the White Country territory, as expected, Kuro's group was stopped by a group of royal guards, led by the chief engineer Fias. The knight commander immediately drew his sword and pointed it at Kuro and the others and showed a wary attitude towards the group from the Dark Country. Adele took out the Shadow King's letter and tried to show goodwill. After listening to Adele's explanation, Fias also let go of his sword and sent a group of messengers to meet the queen. When Queen Iris entered the Great Hall, Kuro was immediately captivated by her beauty. He almost forgot the purpose of his coming here to establish the alliance. After hearing Adele's wish to form an alliance with the White Country, Queen Iris said that she needed to think about it more and would reply to them tomorrow. The queen herself is well aware of the danger that comes from Baal, but it seems that she still does not fully trust the goodwill of the Dark Country. Because she understood that even if the alliance was together, after defeating Baal, the King of Darkness would point his sword at the White Kingdom again. The next day, the queen summoned Adele and Kuro to the Great Hall to answer their request for alliance. From day one, the queen saw Kuro with an aura that was unlike a squire, so she asked him directly what this alliance meant to the people of the Black Country. Kuro replied that if this alliance was formed, it would save countless innocent people's lives, and that was the sole purpose of why he ventured here to negotiate. After hearing Kuro's answer, Queen Iris felt confident in this guy, so she decided to form an alliance with the Dark Country to fight against Demon King Baal. Predicting that this time Baal would appear in the Black Country, Queen Iris immediately set out to the Land of Darkness to aid in the battle, and Kuro and Adele were kept on the White Country as hostages. Groza has now returned to the Black Country and together with Valas set up a defensive barrier waiting to welcome the battle. As expected, Baal appeared in the sky of the Black Country. As soon as Valas saw him, Valas led an army to fight the Demon King. But Baal's power is truly terrible when a single wave of his hand blows away Valas's army. On the ground, Groza commanded his soldiers to continuously shoot giant arrows at Baal. But nothing could penetrate his body, not even Groza's lightning-type magic attack. Despite Valas and Groza's constant attack, Baal calmly ravaged the Huo Kingdom's capital. He suddenly let out a loud, earth-shattering roar that immobilized Valas and Groza's entire bodies. Just as Baal was about to deliver the blow to finish them off, a plume of black smoke appeared out of nowhere. Reading they took it away, which turned out to be the King of Darkness. The ruler of the Black Country personally stopped the Demon King, but it didn't seem to be his opponent either. At this moment, Queen Iris appeared and tied Baal with chains of light. Taking that opportunity, the King of Darkness poured his power to seal the Demon King into a stream of hot lava. Returning from the war, Queen Iris's strength was almost exhausted. Kuro was in the palace when he found out that Iris had returned, so he rushed over to help her. Iris fainted right in Kuro's arms and then she was in a coma for several days. After the battle, Groza was again tasked with bringing a secret letter to the Queen of Light. Although she has not been able to rest after a fierce battle, but because this trip will see the Prince of Darkness again, she is eager to go again. When the Queen opened the letter from the King of Darkness, it turned out to be a request for an armistice, as he wanted to remedy the consequences of the war with the Demon Lord. After thinking for a while, Queen Iris agreed to the suggestion of the Dark King. The Queen then invited Kuro and his party to stay in the White Kingdom as guests, and personally led them on a tour of her beautiful Kingdom of Light. And both sides have put aside any animosity from the war between the two kingdoms to draw closer together. During their stay as a guest and enjoy the peaceful life on this beautiful land, the feelings between Kuro and the Queen of Light began to blossom once they both entered the forest. Not only the two of them, but members of the royal family and ambassadors also gradually became close, They even ate together under a tree as friends. After living in the White Country for a long time, Kuro and Adele were finally summoned back to the Black Country by the King of Darkness. Before leaving the White Country, the royal knights returned to the weapons they had kept before. Afterwards, Phias led the group of messengers to say goodbye to Queen Iris before returning. At this moment, Adele suddenly went into a frenzy. He lost control and flip faces charged at Queen Iris. In that moment, Kuro quickly sliced Adele's body in half with a single blow. Although he saved the queen's life, he was still immediately imprisoned by Phias, and Queen Iris was sent to safety by the guardian angel. Groza's ship that was waiting at the harbor to bring the two messengers back was also immediately chased by the knights, so they had to immediately leave the harbor and return to the Dark Country. Groza was only informed that two emissaries were being held, and she did not know how things would turn out. After this incident, Phias once again lost all faith in the people of the Black Country. He was extremely angry that he had relaxed his guard against them for so long, and most of all, the trust he had in them had been blatantly betrayed. As for the queen, she understands that Kuro is not a bad person and still believes in his desire for peace, so she decides to find a way to save the young swordsman from the prison. Waking up in the dungeon, Kuro still couldn't believe his eyes what just happened. He assumed that Adele must have received a secret order to assassinate Iris from the Dark King. He was thinking about it when suddenly he saw a white cat standing outside the bars. It used magic to open the prison door and lead the way for Kuro to escape from the palace. After reaching a cliff, the cat appeared in its true form as Queen Iris. At this moment in the eyes of the two of them began to ignite an intense love for each other. Kuro revealed to Iris his true identity as the Prince of Darkness, the heir to the Throne of Darkness. The two exchanged a promise that Kuro would strive to achieve the Throne of Darkness, and then the two would bring peace to this world. At this moment, the guards chased, so Kuro had to temporarily part with Iris to escape. As it turned out, all the offers of a truce so far of the King of Darkness were just cards that made the White Country let go of his defenses, and then took that opportunity to send out the army to conquer the Kingdom of Light and put an end to this long war. Knowing that the enemy would soon attack her territory, Iris raised the defense level in the entire territory to the highest level. However, seeing that Queen Iris was already quite exhausted from the previous battles, the Knight Chief Phias asked to be temporarily absent in order to find a way to restore Iris' health. The queen disagreed with that request, but he surreptitiously approached the elf mage Alantia to ask how to cure her. The mage said that if he got the drop of water, it would help Iris regain her strength. Later, Alantia led Phias to a cave deep in the forest, where, according to legend, there was a water intestine that could heal all damage to the principal. As for Kuro, after seeing him return from the White Kingdom, the Shadow King was afraid that he and Groza would betray him, so before going out to attack the Kingdom of Light, he gave them the task of killing the demonic beasts, and Valas is summoned to lead the Shadow Legion that conquer the White Country. Faced with the powerful army of the Black Country, Iris was forced to personally rush to the front lines to lead the soldiers. At this time, the White Kingdom's knights had no commander because Fioyuso was looking for a drop of water. There is only the Mage Legion led by the Queen's sister Sima. They were quite struggling to repel each wave of the Black Kingdom's army. Being surrounded by the Black Army continuously, Sima had to command the soldiers to bring the people of the capital to evacuate the palace. With no other choice, Queen Iris used all of her ultimate power to create a barrier that covered the territory of the White Country. The Black Nation soldiers who touched this barrier were instantly defeated. Thanks to that, the White Country was temporarily safe, but because of that, Queen Iris immediately fell into a coma from exhaustion. At this time, after going through a difficult journey to get deep inside the cave, Phias finally found the drop of water. When he saw the Black Nation army surrounding the territory, he immediately brought it back to save Iris. Thanks to the drop of water, the queen finally recovered her health. At the moment in the Black Country, Groza and Kuro are engrossed in following the orders of the King of Darkness to destroy demonic beasts. Groza fell off a cliff. Fortunately, Kuro jumped and caught her. At the bottom of the cliff, they encountered a very powerful giant monster. Both of them had to fight with the Alliance to defeat that monster. After returning to Kuro's mansion, Groza made a sumptuous meal to nourish the Prince of Darkness. She also took this moment to express her feelings for Kuro. But when she looked into the eyes of the Prince of Darkness, she realized that the person he loved was the Queen of the White Kingdom, not her. So Groza burst into tears and ran out of the mansion. When looking out of the window, Kuro suddenly saw the armies of the Huo Kingdom flying in pairs into the sky. He suddenly realized that the war between the two countries was going to continue. When Kuro walked down the street, the people of the Dark Country were quite surprised that the Prince of Darkness did not join the war. Only now did the young swordsman fully realize that he had been left out of the battle this time. And in the White Kingdom at this time, the King of Darkness personally led his army to battle and dragged a dark cloud covering the battlefield. Tonight's dark clouds brought an evil aura that made the White Kingdom soldiers lose their minds and turn to attack the people and their comrades. Sima and the royal team of magicians tried to both fight the shadow soldiers and use magic to purify the evil spirits from those who were corrupted by them. Under the wall, Phias had brought all the royal knights out to meet the Black Knight Valis. The two of them had an undefeated battle with no one giving up. In the sky now, Iris had returned to the battlefield to confront the King of Darkness. But unlike the battle between the two knights on the ground, Iris, who had fully recovered, was still weaker against the Dark King. The White Queen put all her strength into a single attack but was still caught by him, even dropped from the overcast sky to the ground by him. Sima's side at the moment is struggling with the magicians to purify the corrupted comrades. But the number of people being manipulated by the dark cloud increased more and more, making it impossible for her to repel the evil spirit. Even those she saved continued to be invaded by evil spirits, making Sima extremely helpless. Even when Iris fell, the two sisters joined forces but still couldn't turn the situation around. So Iris had to resort to the last resort of asking for help from the source of the power of the White Country, the ancestral rune stone. At this time, the King of Darkness had chased to the place, so Sima stood up to support her sister running to meet the ancestral stone, but she was unfortunately enveloped by his evil aura. Below ground, Kuro was suddenly summoned by a group of soldiers to return to the palace. When he arrived, he was surprised to discover that the person calling him was not the King of Darkness but Adele, the comrade he had cut in two before. It turned out that he was not dead yet, but became an effective henchman of the King of Darkness. Adele suddenly absorbed the power of darkness and became a powerful monster. The two went into battle, and this time Adele wasn't the same as when she was in the fight for the title of the Dark Prince. Adele has now become a monster with such great power that Kuro's attacks cannot hurt him. After a period of inconclusive combat, Kuro took advantage of Adele's opening to launch a blow that locked him into the pile of thorns. Thinking that he was able to control Adele, he suddenly appeared behind Kuro and blew away the great sword in his hand, then pierced Kuro's body with the left sword. Despite his severe injuries, Kuro still managed to pull out the sword Skiers had given him, stabbing it through the monster's neck. At this time, Adele gave a sarcastic smile and said that his mission was done. It turned out that Adele's mission was to keep Kuro on the ground so that the King of Darkness could invade the White Country. After saying that, Adele also turned into a jet of black smoke and disappeared into the void. Running out of time, Kuro grabbed the great sword with all his last strength and ran to the harbor. But all the battleships had been dispatched to the battle, so Kuro had no way to get to the White Country. In the moment of despair, a hidden source of power emerged from Kuro's body. A pair of wings sprouted from his back, and he immediately flew straight to the White Country's territory. Above, the shaman Sima, now enveloped in darkness, she begins to fall into negative thoughts about her sister. Thoughts of resenting Iris for having won the queen's place began to surround Sima. But thanks to her steadfast will, the sorceress finally repelled the aura and regained consciousness. But everything now has almost no meaning anymore, because in front of the ancestral stone, Queen Iris begged for destruction to exchange a new era for the world. The surface of the White Country territory gradually cracked and the entire flying island began to collapse. By the time Kuro arrived, it was all too late. From the forests to the palatial royal palace, in an instant there were only ruins that were slowly falling to the ground. Kuro saw Iris falling with the island and immediately rushed to save her. But in the end, Queen Iris, as well as the fates of the two countries since ancient times, were as opposed to each other as day and night could no longer save her. Iris gradually fell and her soul turned into a white cat and disappeared. Unable to do anything else, Kuro could only embrace the pain of losing his lover and rushed straight at the King of Darkness. He unleashed a final killing blow that finished the domination of the night and himself died with the destruction of the world. After the battle, a new era was opened. There was no longer the antagonism between the two kingdoms but instead a beautiful world, and the people here lived in harmony with each other. In the end, the love between the White Queen and the reluctant Prince of the Night was not complete. But their sacrifice has given the world a bright era for all mankind. This is the end of the movie. Thank you very much. Please subscribe and press the notification button to wait for new videos. Hello and see you all again.